오케이. 오늘은 각 분야의 전문가 분들을 모시고 실패에 관련된 사례. 오늘의 주제는 위대한 실패, 초복잡성 시대 극복의 힘이라는 주제로 해서 총 7분의 그 글로벌 전문가들을 모시고 말씀을 듣고요. 또 우리 한국에는 어떻게 적용될 것인가, 어떻게 한국은 변화를 해야 할 것인가 하는 것을 가지고 같이 한 2시간에 걸쳐서 대담을 하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 저는 오늘 사회를 맡은 한국기술교육대학교 기계공학부 이우영 교수입니다. 그리고 오늘 첫 번째 스피커, 퍼스트 스피커, 미스터 프로페서 폴 이스케, 마스트릭스 대학교 경영대학원의 교수이시면서요, 브릴리언트 페일리어 그 인스티튜트 운영을 하신 풍부한 경험을 가진 분이십니다. 두 번째 발표하실 분이 프랑크 하름센, right? 이분은 P&A 그룹 총괄이사이시면서 마스트릭스 대학교의 교수를 역임하고 계십니다. 오늘 발표해 주실 내용은 ICT 분야에서의 실패와 배움을 주제로 말씀을 해 주실 겁니다. Right? 세 번째 소개해 드릴 분은 엘리자베스 클레인벨트, 미스 엘리자베스 클레인벨트. 네덜란드에서 현재 스타트업 부트캠프의 핀테크 사이버 보안 분야의 매니저로 일하고 계십니다. 이분께서는 오늘 스타트업 분야에서의 실패와 배움 사례를 설명을 해주실 걸로 보고요. 네 번째 발표로 테우 브레러, 테우 브로어즈죠. 정확한 발음이. 지금 현재 기업을 운영하고 계십니다. 콤보 소프트웨어의 대표로 계시고요. 국제 인터내셔널 비즈니스 분야에서의 실패와 배움을 주제로 말씀을 해주실 예정으로 있습니다. 다섯 번째로 토마스 버허겐, 토마스 버허겐께서는 캠브리지 대학교의 지속가능 리더십 연구소 수석 매니저이시고요. 오늘 말씀하실 내용은 에너지 프로젝트에서의 실패와 배움, 지속가능한 에너지 프로젝트에서의 실패와 배움을 주제로 발표해 주시겠습니다. 그리고 저 끝에 앉으신 그 미스 클라우디아 리겐, 클라우디아 리겐은 현재 노바티스 제약의 유럽 지역 총괄 디지털 혁신 성능 담당으로 계시고요. 오늘 말씀해 주실 내용은 제약업계의 발전 과정을 보여주는 실패와 성공 사례를 말씀해 주실 겁니다. 맨 마지막에 한국인 변부한 교수님이신데요. 현재 서강대학교 교수님으로 계십니다. 변 교수님께서는 한국의 실패와 성공 사례를 위주로 해서 오늘 말씀을 해 주실 예정으로 있습니다. 그러면 첫 번째 발표로서 미스터 폴 이스케.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the floor. I'm very happy to introduce to you the topic of brilliant failures. And I will explain to you a little bit why this is an important topic and what we can learn from brilliant failures. And that's more or less the introduction to my fantastic group of people here who will talk about brilliant failures from different perspectives. So the theme of this whole meeting, of this conference, is complexity, is decentralization. And that means that we are living indeed in a world, we work in a world that is very complex. Behind me you see a complex system. And the behavior of such a complex system is very difficult to predict. Also the tasks you have, the projects you start, the companies you start is such a complex environment, it is very difficult to predict what will happen. So sometimes we have surprises and we have to be open for that. Doesn't mean that we should not try to do something, that we should not undertake things. No, of course not, we should do that. But we should not think that everything will be a success. And if things are not successful, should we regret that? Maybe. But certainly we should take the opportunity to learn from it, so next time we do an even better job. So what we have to do in such a world is to think broader, to think about new perspectives, to see things from a new perspective. Also, when you fail, you should look at this from another perspective than you used to. So if you deal with complexity, you have to deal with actually three things. You have to deal with change. You have to deal with uncertainty, and you have to deal with others. That is what dealing with complexity really means. It means that you are dealing with these three aspects, and all of them are related in one way or another to the possibility to have another result they were looking for, which we call a failure. So we have to deal with reality. That's the point. The reality is sometimes different than we hope for, than we expected. Take, for instance, entrepreneurship. And Ms. Kleinveld, she will certainly say a little bit much more about entrepreneurship. But this is the picture we have when we think about entrepreneurs. We teach them a lot of skills to be very successful. We heard about unicorns, decacorns, hectacorns. So this is the idea we have. We have a little plant, a seed, we add some money, and we will have a big success. But in reality, most of the times it ends up like this. Yeah? Is that bad? No, that's part of the game. And again, Mrs. Kleinveld will explain why that is. So indeed, we learn and teach each other how to be successful. We use Facebook and we show each other our successes. But most of the things we do in life are not that easy. And sometimes we really fail. And in terms of, let's say, startups, business projects, especially in the new society, the new economy, we heard things about blockchain. We cannot guarantee success. Actually, what we guarantee is that probably majority of the initiatives will fail. It's not bad, it's part of the game. But we should also learn how to teach down. As an example, when would you invest? There is a startup, and he or she has a great idea and is looking for money. Well, if he or she has a good story to tell, a good pitch, probably will get money. Okay, let's get started. So they start, and they start with their ideas and their knowledge, and the company develops. At one moment in time, they discover, there's more or less this moment, it's not going to work. What do you do? Oh yeah, you can stop doing the things, you can sell maybe what's left, or maybe you go bankrupt. But the best thing you could do is, in the right way to do, is start down. Make sure that you will not have unnecessary damage, and that you take the learnings, and then at the end of the day, you might come to a new point in your career where you can consider to start over again, which is here, which is in the lower part. And that's more or less the second chance. You try it again. Now the question is, where would you like to invest? Would you like to invest in the first attempt or in the second? I would invest in the second, because then people have accumulated even more knowledge. They use the learnings and they have probably a better idea, or they don't make the mistakes that they made in the first part. So if you would like to invest, where would you do? In the second part. I did research on people who went bankrupt in Europe, and I interviewed many people who were not successful, but later became very successful. And guess what? All of them said, you know, why I became so successful later? Because I used the learnings from the things that happened to me in previous attempts. They used the second chance. But the point is, if you go to a bank and you say, I need finance, and I need finance for my second attempt, people say, oh, wait a minute, you went bankrupt. No, we're going not to give you any money because you are a risk. Whereas research has shown that people who try it again, on average, are more successful than starters. We know why, because they have learned a lot. But in our traditional way of thinking and a traditional way of financing, we don't do that. So the question I want to pose, and also to the Korean population, is that true? Are we not allowing people to fail? Do we not allow for a second chance? Do we only have one perspective on failure? We can have one perspective on failure, say, this is wrong, this is bad. I wanted to have success, and I'm not having success. The person who has did this is not a good person because he failed. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is say, great that somebody tries, great that somebody starts a company or does an interesting project, and great that we can learn from it. That is the other perspective. And it might be clear that I'm not alone, all of my colleagues here at the podium, we are promoting this second perspective. Let's celebrate people who try, let's celebrate the learnings that come out of it. Let's accept that failure and success are part of the same story. And that in that story, learning is extremely important. Learning is the way to create value for the future. And what we talk about is the future of ourselves, the future of our projects, the future of our companies, the future of our nation. And that future can only be built using the lessons learned, the knowledge that we have accumulated in the past. So that also explains the word fail itself. Fail stands for first attempt in learning. That's the real interpretation of the abbreviation fail. It's not a word, it's an abbreviation. Sometimes you earn and sometimes you learn. Now this exactly is the background and the philosophy of the Institute of Brilliant Failures, where I am the CFO, the Chief Failure Officer. And what we try to promote is a culture, an environment where people feel free to try and where people feel free to fail and to learn from these failures, and where they are strongly motivated to share these learnings with others. That is our philosophy. And now, it has to be, I must say, a brilliant failure. That has our preference. I mean, we all fail, we all make mistakes, and that's human. I believe, and we also have created a so-called fundamental human right to fail. But the best thing you can do is to fail brilliantly, which means that you have a good intent. You try to do something that's useful, that could add value. I mean, jumping from an Eiffel Tower and saying, I do this to test whether the gravity is still working, that's not brilliant. I mean, that's more in the category of stupid. Nobody gains anything about it, and when you hit your head on the floor, then the damage is there. What we talk about, people who really try to improve life, make a better world, increase safety, find new fantastic technological developments, that's what I talk about. They have the right intentions, they work hard, they are inspired. But unfortunately, the world is complex, things might work, things might not work. And then they learn, and they're able also to use the learnings themselves later on and to share these learnings with others. That is what we call a brilliant failure. And that's what we should stimulate, what we should celebrate. Success is great. Brilliant failures are also great. There are many, many examples. This is an interesting example, and Ms. Rijken will also use this type of examples. The development of a drug is very complex, and actually this company wanted to develop a drug against heart failure. And at the end of the day, it turned out that this product for heart failure had a side effect with about half of the population, appreciated by the other half. And then you get a new product. Well, it's not being used for heart failure. It's used for something else. But that is coincidence. We call this serendipity. Serendipity means you find something by coincidence, but it can only happen if you're open for coincidence. If you're not only looking blindfolded to one particular thing, but you are open for other opportunities. And one of the other opportunities is learning from failure. Things can happen, can go wrong in another way. This is a bridge that has been built in Honduras, the country of Honduras. And years and years later, this area was hit by a hurricane, the Hurricane Mitch, 1998. And the whole delta was flooded. And when the water went back, it turned out that the river moved 400 meters. So the bridge is still there, but the river is somewhere else. Things happen. That's complexity. If I'm a father of 3 children, if they have an argument, I try to solve it, but 1 minute later they have a fight about something else. Happens. Complexity. So what we try to do is to not only say that it's important to learn from failures, but we also help people how to do that. And one way of doing that is by appreciating that there are what we call patterns of failing. Sometimes you recognize a type of failing. For instance, a lot of innovations are great, but they fail because they're not coming at the right time. They're too early or too late. So timing is a very important aspect. And that's one pattern of failing. Another pattern of failing is that you try to solve a very complex problem, but you use too little knowledge, not the knowledge from other people, outside your own discipline. And we call that the canyon. You live in your canyon. Sometimes things fail because people stick too long to the same idea. They move on and they move on. We call that the junk. And then you ask them, why did you continue so long? And they said, yeah, we still had budget. Okay. Or they said, well, I promised to do it. Yeah, but if it doesn't work, you should not stick to that promise. And that is what we call the junk. Now, we have developed 16 of these patterns. We have analyzed hundreds and hundreds of failures, and we're starting to see patterns in failing. And that helps us to easily see very quickly that failure might happen, but also to communicate and to share the lessons learned from the failure, because we have now developed a language for talking about failure. So that is one way of really making it happen. we also produce materials like a journal of brilliant failures. Everyone says for failure you learn the most. So why are we only writing about successes? If you buy a magazine, if you buy a scientific journal, what will you see? Only the successes. If you go to a conference, what will people tell you about? About their successes. But we say you can learn more for your failures. So show me people who failed, then I can learn most. That's why we have written, we're producing this journal of brilliant failures to help people, first of all, to show themselves that they're proud of what they tried and that they're proud to tell about what they learned, and for other people to take indeed these learnings. We even hand out prizes for the most brilliant failure in companies, in areas like education, healthcare, in government, so that people are proud to talk about what didn't work for them. So this is the overall idea about brilliant failures. It's aiming to create an environment where people are free, are not afraid to try and not afraid to fail and not afraid to talk about the lessons learned. And I sincerely hope that this could also be interesting for the Korean society. That also in your country, people will start talking about the necessity and the added value of learning from failures, and that this great country will benefit from everything that happens, the successes as well as the failures. So that's my little introduction. I would like to conclude with my statement that we could discuss later on, but I see from the practice that this is true. Failure is an option, certainly in this complex world that is decentralizing, where people work together, companies work together in new ways. We have to learn to find our way to the future. It's not a straight line, it's a line, it's a road full of new experiences with successes and with failures. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy now to introduce our next speaker, that is Mr. Frank Harmsen. He's also professor at the University of Maastricht, and he has a very wide experience in very complex projects, being very complex ICT projects. Now, I think we all know that not all ICT projects are immediately a success, so he will tell us why that is, and I'm very happy to hand over now to Mr. Harmsen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a problem with my... we'll put it here, yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. I completely agree with you that that failure is an option, as introduced by Mr. Paul Iske. Don't know where my slides are, but they will come. Okay. As introduced by Professor Iske, I will go a little bit deeper into the world of information system project, ICT projects. Apart from being a professor at Maastricht University, I'm also managing director of P&A, which is a company in the Netherlands focusing on learning, improving knowledge management, and we completely agree with the statement that, well, you learn more from failures than from successes, and that's also true for information system projects. And as Professor Iske already explained, still haven't got my slides, but we'll try to do the introduction without the slide. As Professor Paul Iske already explained, information system projects hardly go right let's say in one turn, in one way. They always experience, there are always failures, there are always, well, setbacks in projects, and how can we learn from that? And we use the framework introduced by Paul Iske, introduced by the Institute for Brilliant Failures, with the 16 patterns. There are the slides. This is what I will tell to you, what I present to you. So, going from information system projects, what are the brilliant failures and how to learn from it? And these are the 16 patterns already introduced by Professor Iske. You see all of them here. You see the junk, for instance, on the over here. That's the junk. That's the addiction. Well, doing the same thing over and over again and can't stop with it. That's a very common mistake made in information system projects. You see, for instance, also a very famous one, the banana peel. You literally fall over a banana peel in a project because someone goes ill, someone, there's some reason that the project doesn't go as was planned. Another famous one is this one. It's the wrong wallet, actually. In information system projects, often the value or the goal of the project is beneficial to someone else than the one who supplies the money. And that's one reason why projects fail, because, well, when the problem comes into problems, then the one with the money says, well, let's stop with it, whereas the one who earns the value of the project says, well, no, please continue. And well, there are numerous examples of, and I will show them. I will show to you 3 of them, where we can use these patterns, where we can use these 16 archetypes of the Institute of Brilliant Failures to classify, to identify the failures, and more importantly, to learn from them. So what I will do is I will present 3 cases in which I was involved as an advisor, so to say, or I should give a second opinion. So I know quite a lot about these 3 cases. All 3 big projects, big information system projects. Will tell you a little bit about them, and will tell you how they relate to the 16 patterns and how to learn from it. Actually, this was a project about streamlining the justice chain. I won't go into all the details, but it's, as you can imagine, the Ministry of Justice, the police, lawyers are all parts of a chain where they interact with each other. And what could be more, blissful than streamlining this chain? As you can imagine, all these parties, all these stakeholders use separate information systems, don't share data, don't share common interests, and there should be, at least the plan was, to come up with one big information system, streamlining the chain. A 200 million plus project actually, was actually quite a big project. More than 40 organizations involved, 8 IT vendors. That's already a recipe for disaster probably, but many consultancies earning money from the project. So you can imagine all these stakeholders, especially the commercial stakeholders, they weren't not so interested in, let's say, streamlining the value chain. Of course, some of them were, but some of them were also very interested in earning money, right? In gaining a lot of money. There were 2 sponsors. The interests were quite unbalanced. The police wanted something else than the ministry, and the lawyers wanted something else. It was based on actually 2010 technology. It was started somewhere around 2010. A new development approach was practiced, agile approach. It was quite new for all the parties in the chain. And at the same time, there were some scandals in the ministry, not related to this project, but it didn't help. Well, what we ended up with, we classified these projects, and actually now the minister officially stopped the project last week. So you could say it is a failure. And the question then, how to learn from it? How to learn from these big government projects? Well, what we did was we classified the project. We said, well, it's like a general without an army, right? So this is the first icon. This one is a general without an army, because actually, it was many of these stakeholder organizations didn't have the means, actually didn't have the resources to actually execute the projects. I went into one organization, quite a small organization in this chain, didn't have a project manager to run the activities that were necessary to execute the projects. A general without an army. Also, the famous bridge of, it's over there, the bridge of Honduras. Paul already alluded to it. The requirements moved since 2010. So you can imagine long project, and the initial requirements were different than the requirements, well, that were applicable last year, for instance. So, well, I can go on and on and on, but you can imagine that there were some patterns visible in this project that, well, can be really helpful to identify in future projects the pitfalls that you can learn from. Another one was in a commercial company. Not all failed IS projects are in government organizations. They are also in bigger companies. One company, one system, very ambitious, 1.1 billion project, more than 25 business units involved. It was an IT project, actually, so the IT department supplied the project manager. It was a question of who is in the lead. Is it an IT project or is it a project for the whole company? It was also kind of a mantra of the new CEO. The new CEO said, we are one company, we are not 25 business units, we are one company, so we need one system for everyone. One IT vendor, quite a big dependency, and completion should be due in 2 years. So quite ambitious again. And there we identified, again, a number of patterns, like the Bridge of Honduras, like this guy here is Einstein, and who says, well, you need to manage complexity, but, well, you need to make things as simple as possible. But sometimes things can't be simplified anymore, so don't oversimplify. And that was the case in this project. Also, the missing man on the table here, also very common in information system projects. It was really an IT project, and the business, the guys and girls who really did the jobs, were completely missing in this project. So the requirements were really set up by IT. It was, well, quite painful, actually. And the third case is a national patient file in a country, also big, more than 500 million, a variety of stakeholders, all technology. Standardization was important. It was sensitive because of all kinds of reasons, privacy, for instance. Many political views and the interests of the patients were very, very important. And there we saw these patterns emerge, like the Bridge of Honduras, right, like the wrong wallet, like also the black swan, new developments that emerged suddenly, because in National Patient File, you could imagine, you heard a lot about blockchain this morning, and the blockchain technology emerged, and, well, the project didn't involve that, actually. So a lot of patterns visible that we can learn from. And actually, what we identified was not 16 patterns, but 12. So these are the 12, and those are the 12 most commonly found patterns, archetypes in information system projects. And for each of them, of course, the art of recognizing is, well, how I have an ICT project, an information system project. Which patterns do I see? Do I see the general without the army? Do I see the black swan? Do I see the wrong wallet? Do I see, well, you name it, the canyon, etc., etc.? And how should I cope with them? How should I learn from them? How should I make sure that I don't fall in the same pitfall as I fell in that earlier project, in that National Patient File, or in streamlining the justice chain? So what we did was we identified also some responses to those patterns. For instance, and they are sometimes very, well, obvious, I would say. For instance, the general without an army. If you don't have the resources, make sure you have the resources. That's quite obvious. But sometimes also less obvious, like the canyon, where people tend to use the same procedures over and over again. Well, let's be creative, and let's organize a workshop, and let's try to think outside of the box and try to see things differently. So there are many, many responses possible on those let's say, on those failure patterns. But the first step is to identify them and to see them. So having said that, I give the floor to Mrs. Elizabeth Kleinfeld. Thank you very much.
Just a moment, I make some wrap-up explanation. Okay, have a seat, please. Yeah, 네. 첫 번째 우리 프로페서 폴 말씀하신 내용은 전반적으로 오늘 그 강연하실 분들의 주제를 하나하나 짚어가면서 개요를 다 설명해 주신 걸로 보시면 되겠습니다. 두 번째 지금 금방 발표를 마치신 우리 프랭크께서는 인포메이션 시스템인데 대형 인포메이션 시스템에서의 페일리어 사례를 전체가 16가지로 구분된 페일리어 사례를 유형이 있다고 그러면 그중에서 IS에서는 한 12개 정도 유형에 크게 나누어 볼 수 있다라고 정의를 해 주신 것 같습니다. 예, 그럼에도 불구하고 그 유형이 사실은 굉장히 유기적으로 연결되어 있기 때문에 사실은 그 정확하게 12개 유형에 어디에 속한다고 분류하는 것은 좀 어렵지 않을까 하는 게 제 개인적인 생각이고요. 나중에 질문을 또 드리도록 하겠습니다. 다음은 세 번째 주제 발표로 엘리자베스께서 스타트업 분야에서의 실패 응용을 발표해 주시겠습니다. 그 앉아서 얘기를 하셔도 될 것 같습니다.
Sure.
오케이.
Thank you. So my name is Elizabeth Kleinfeld, and before I talk about startup failure, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and about Startup Boot Camp. So I've been working with startups for almost 5 years, first from ABN AMRO, where I introduced about 40 startups to the bank and helped them set up a location in the center of Amsterdam for startups, then moving to Holland FinTech, an ecosystem builder, helping with the innovation between startups, scale-ups, and the incumbents. And after that, to Startup Boot Camp, where I'm responsible for the partners of our FinTech and cybersecurity program, the banks, the insurers, the pension processors. They all work with us, and they come to learn how to innovate with the startups and how to collaborate with them. So Startup Bootcamp was founded in 2010, and since then we have almost 650 companies in our portfolio. After Demo Day, it's a program that takes about 3 months, and after Demo Day we still have 75% of the companies 4 years later that are around, which is higher than the industry average. But even though it's a 3-month program, we really are beginning a journey with these startups and sometimes scale-ups for 5 to 7 years on average. And we're helping them in many ways with funding, but also helping them expand into other geographies. And I do have 7 companies actually here with me today from Startup Bootcamp. We have industry-focused programs, and we're in verticals like fintech, insurtech, e-commerce, IoT, AI, health tech. And wherever we go, we like to really build powerful ecosystems with local counterparts. We're not here yet in Seoul, so we'd love to be here. And if there are any local counterparts who'd like to see an accelerator program like ours here, please let me know. We're already in 20 countries. And in fact, we're the #1 accelerator outside of the US and the largest in Europe. So I'm part of the FinTech program and the SureTech program, and we are operating in Mumbai and Mexico City, London, New York, Singapore, but also Amsterdam, and InsurTech in London and also Hartford. And the beauty of the program is that if you've been accelerated in another city, you can always come and say, oh, well, I'd like to meet the banks in Amsterdam, and we're able to open that network up for you. Many times it takes 6 to 9 months to get into these large corporates, and during our accelerator, you're sitting there day in, day out for 3 months with these companies. And afterwards, then you have access to the global local partners. So with so many companies in our portfolio, of course, we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And what's really important to us is the team. So we invite about 20 companies to Amsterdam to pitch before we select 10 to join our program. and we ask them before they come to take psychological profiles. So we know that there are certain profiles and combinations of those profiles which can make or break a company. So now I'm going to dive into the reasons for startup failure, and a lot of these reasons come from our own experience at Startup Bootcamp, but also I've linked it to some of the CB Insights research, and they did some research with 100 companies that had failed. So the biggest reason, no market need. During the program, we asked the companies in the first 2 weeks, what is the problem their client has? First of all, who's their client? What's their problem? How are they currently dealing with that problem? And does your solution deal with it in a better way? Are they willing to pay for it? We call this problem-solution fit, and Eric Ries likes to say that startups are like hunters and gatherers constantly looking for problem-solution fit. And if you're not really solving a pain point in a scalable way, then it's probably not the right time for the market. If you're a solution looking for a problem, then it's not going to work. And this is why CB Insights says that no market need accounts for 42% of all startup failure. Not working on problems you're obsessed about. So starting a company is, really like running a marathon, and at the end of the day, the finish line keeps on moving. It's grueling day in, day out. So if you don't have a personal stake, a reason why you're doing this, then you're going to have a hard time going past that finish line. So I always like to ask teams, why are you the ones to be solving this problem? Paul alluded to it earlier, running out of cash. This is something that the CEO needs to be working on a weekly basis. If you raise your next round too late, then you're out of the game. So running out of cash amounts for 29% of startup failures. It's the second most cited reason. So no cash, no king. You'll crash and burn without that cash. However, should you take money from just anyone? Well, you can imagine if your investors are doing their due diligence on you, you need to be doing the same on them. And that means you need to be speaking to other startups that are having experience already with those investors, be they angels or VCs, and finding out what they're like to work with. At the end of the day, you're going to want to be working with a company or people that believe in the problem that you're tackling as much as you do and understand it well. And that understanding is important because you need to agree with them how you're going to measure your progress, what KPIs to focus on. And in Europe, we don't always focus on sometimes the right KPIs, I think. In the US, we look at leading indicators and like the lifetime value of a customer, the cost of acquiring a customer, net promoter score, and sometimes we're still too focused on revenue and profit in Europe, what I like to call vanity metrics. So it's really important to keep your investors updated, and I'm sure this goes without saying, but if you don't, and if there's radio silence, then they're going to think that the worst has happened, and they're going to start chasing you, and at the end of the day, if they're chasing you, you're not in control of your company. And you should reach out to them and ask them for help, but don't ask them for help when your back is against a wall. Ask them for help when you start getting this inkling, things maybe aren't going so well. They will have invested in more companies. They will have seen a lot of things, so they'll have the experience to be able to help you. So do lean on them. This is one I love. Thinking that running a startup is anything like the corporate world. Well, you can forget it. Anybody have a dog here? What about a big dog? When you go out and you take this big dog for a walk, that dog is really walking you. Well, running a startup is like walking a tiger. That tiger is taking you every which way but where you want to go. So you're going to have to focus it. One of my colleagues likes to say, a running horse can't drink. This is, in fact, a picture of our Amsterdam office, the kitchen. And if you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, you're managing too many balls so they're falling, you're not going to get anything done or get done well. And people are going to notice it, and they're not going to believe in you, be they your investors or your team members. So earlier I mentioned the importance of these psychological profiles. So it's really important for us that the CEO has a lot of energy and a lot of will, you're going to face a mountain of resistance, and you're just going to have to keep being able to plug through. So it helps you to stay in the game when the going gets tough, and of course, it will, time and time again. That means that not only the CEO, but also the co-founders and the early hires need to be 200% committed. This is going to help you get where you want to go before the competition. Without it, the competition wins. Also means you need to have a vesting agreement between founders. If we don't see this, then we'd like to ask you to do that before joining the program. A lot of startups crash and burn because of problems within a team, and this helps that. The other thing that helps that is having a pre-mediator. So if you become a team in our program, we have 2 or 3 pre-mediation sessions. And what that does is basically say, if things go bad, this is how we're going to deal with it. And that helps you prevent things from going bad, but if they do, you already know the rules of the game, and so you can move on quickly and not, take down the company because there are problems between the founders. So not having an amazing team that is fully aligned. Well, team is the most important thing that we look at when we get a startup into our program, because if you have a team that has a not so great idea, they can pivot. They can change. That was one of the things Paul was talking about. If, however, the team isn't so great, they can take a brilliant idea and run it right into the ground. Not having the right team accounts for 23% of startup failure. So it goes without saying that you want to hire winners. We look at 9s or people who have the potential to be 9+, and they may not be the easiest people to work with, but they definitely get the job done. It also means that if there isn't a good fit, you need to let go of the people sooner than later, because the other role of a CEO is not just cash flow, but of course working on culture. And if you have a really good culture, one of the things that can help is to have that big, hairy, audacious goal. So we call that BHAG. And the BHAG for our Startup Bootcamp is that we want to influence 10,000 startups. That's one of the reasons I'm here today, to bring some of the startups that are already in our program, but also to see, are there startups here in Seoul who are doing things that we would love to see happening in Amsterdam or other geographies. Not having an international strategy. Once you've mastered one geography and you're trying to open up another one, you need to know what the best geography is for you to go to and not just pick the low-hanging fruit. So if you're very opportunistic about where you're going to go, that strategy won't work because it costs a lot to open up new geographies. If you change your mind, have a strategy, and if you change your mind, that's one thing, but do that with knowing why you're doing that. So how to have a brilliant success? First of all, I would very much recommend Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup, but also his newest book, The Startup Way. We use this not only for the startups in our program, but we also help large corporates use this methodology so that they can innovate internally. So we've brought some startups here, and I'm going to tell you a tiny bit about them and ask the people who are here from those startups to stand up, because of course they do want to expand here, and maybe some of you can help them with that. So I have Diego, and he works with Vision Tech and Vision Space Labs. You can stand up, and what they do is Vision Tech is deception technology, and Vision Space has challenging topics for the space industry. Rutger from 24 Sessions, he's not here right now, he'll be here in the afternoon, and all of these people will be speaking tomorrow morning, so I encourage you to listen to them speak, and they have video technology for face-to-face customer interaction. Hanukkah, she's here from iLost. They help you return lost property in an efficient way. Then Dennis from Dash Mode helps you turn images into actionable data about your customers' affinities. Wouter from Stamp Wallet helps you increase customer loyalty. They're already in Vietnam and Cambodia, so they'd love to be here as well. John from Counter, point of sale software, and Ka and Sarah from Limitless. and Limitless's white label micro investment app for millennials. So thank you very much, and if you want to speak to me afterwards or tomorrow about Startup Bootcamp, about any of the companies here, about corporate innovation, I'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elizabeth. But we have to reduce our presentation time a little. Yes. Okay, so next speaker is 테오 브루어. 브루어신데 국제 경영 분야에서의 실패와 응용 사례로 말씀해 주시겠습니다. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Theo Broers. I'm CEO of Compass Software. It's a company founded 35 years ago in the south of the Netherlands, between the borders of Germany and Belgium. The first product we made, a software product, had already a mistake and a failure inside. So that's a double one. We created computer-aided education in 1983. Nearly no one in the world was thinking on that. It was completely new, and it was very quickly successful in the Netherlands, on universities and high school, on medical and paramedical businesses. Then we thought, if we can do it in Dutch, we only have to translate it in Germany, and it's only 10 kilometers from our office, so we can sell it there. But we didn't know to who to sell. So we went to the Chamber of Commerce, and we trusted them. We didn't look if they did this before. That was a really mistake. Because they said, oh, this is brilliant for the German market. We can bring you in contact with universities and high schools. We visited 2 high schools. We visited the university. And on the end of the product, it was, these people, they had any interest to speak with us. They only involved us because they thought they're going to lose their jobs if the computer is introduced on university and on high schools. This was our biggest mistake directly with our first product. Then the failure came. In 1987, the Dutch government didn't put so much money in education on universities and high schools as they did in the years before. There was a crisis. The first thing which universities and high schools dropped out was our program. So we lost a lot of money, and we didn't have any idea what to do again. Luckily, we came in contact with a new brand of computer, Atari, who was looking for software. It was one of the first computers with a graphical interface, and it has an on-board floppy disk, which was amazing for that time. You could have it with a color monitor with 64 colors on it. Think on that. Now we're speaking about million colors, it was only 64. And the operating system was built in the hardware of the computer. So if you switch on the computer, in 10 seconds you could work with it. We had 2 types of products we made. We made programs on a local computer or local network. There was no internet on that moment, so think on that. And we made programs we were selling on disk. Our mistake here was that we made programs for local computers and local networks. We didn't have any experience with both, but we find out very quickly that it needs many people to keep running a system on a local computer or a local network if they are not on the corner of your office. So we had customers 100 and 200 kilometers from our office away, and they asked us every day, but there was no internet. We couldn't use any program to view what they were doing, so we had to drive to them and go back. We lost so many hours that we didn't come any longer to programming. So that was a mistake or a failure. It's something between. I think it was a mistake. Then we had a lot of programs. We were leading by distribution and programming for Atari computers. And one of the things was that we make a microphone in a mouse. You saw that in Star Wars. So we think that's a brilliant product. We did the check. We find out that in Germany it would be a very good market to sell it. The stupid thing is we didn't think on the rest of the world. We think Star Wars is overall in these years, so we can sell it on all places. Nice. We sold about 25,000 in 3 months in Germany. So we were very happy. We ordered 75,000 more for the rest of the world. From these 75,000, we sold 500 as a computer mouse with a microphone. The rest we sold, we had to repack them, and we sold them as a normal mouse because we couldn't sell them with microphone on it. So it was only a typical product for the German market that didn't work anywhere else. In 1987, we had 6 branches in 5 countries. We were in Paris, we were in Oxford, we were in San Francisco, in Berlin, we were in Prüm in Germany, and we were in the south of the Netherlands. And it was going good. We learned from the past, so we think, okay, the disc or the CD business to distribute software on that, we can do good. So we also started to make software for IBM OS2. But then, it was a disaster, not by the computer companies, but it was by our customers, because they starting to copying software. So we had less sales and less money. It was very difficult to sell even. And we're speaking now about 93, 94. In 96, only copying. No sales and no money. So this happens in 4 years' time, that a couple of brilliant software companies lost their complete stay only because people thought you can copy everything you do. What was legal in 1993 was not any legal, I think, in 1998. So we lost very quickly customers, and the most customers we lost in the US. That was the biggest one with copying, and the UK. In Germany and the Netherlands, customers still stayed a little bit with us. They stayed longer with us. And we had, from the 6 branches, we had to go back to 2 in 2 countries, in Germany and the Netherlands. For the third time, we had to find a new position in the software market. And it was a difficult segment on this moment. There was no SaaS. We had only rumors about internet. So we were thinking about it. What are we going to do? And then we were lucky. We found that you could, with the Atari computer, you could already make videos, and also with Apples. And we thought, okay, there is a little bit internet. Maybe we can streaming on that. So we started to make equipment so that we could video stream on the internet. And we did that for sports, football, judo, shooting, badminton, and so on. But you have to think, it is 1998. The picture on the left side, the small one, that's how big a post stamp is. That's what we could stream in that time. Because people using normal telephone lines. We didn't have all this speed than what we can do now. On the right side, you see one of the streams from what we did last year. That is, we can do it in the best quality, what you also see on television on this moment. But we also thought this is dangerous, because what we saw now, what we learned also from before, that it can very quickly change what you are doing. And Technic is going further and further and further. So you have always to be a step before. So we started in 1999 to make a SaaS program, software as a service, as one of the first, I think, in Europe. And we built a system for a human resource system and a payrolling system. We brought it in the market, and we're quite happy with that. It is a good selling product. We had it in Germany, Austria, Netherlands, and Belgium. We just closed, again, Germany and Austria, because we want to concentrate this on the Dutch and the Belgian market, but because this is a very strong growing market on that. And Germany and Austria have a different tax system against Belgium and the Netherlands, so it is easier for us this. And we also did it because we think we need not 2 legs to stand on, but we need a third and a fourth leg. because then we are stable for the next maybe 5 or 10 years, and we can develop in these years new products. So we started. We did already salary calculations in our program. Then we started a company who does salary calculations for big companies, but also for small companies, for payroll companies with a couple of thousand people, but also for companies who is only 2 or 3 people working in the pub on the corner or something we did. In 2013, the year before I met Paul, we started with software as a ticketing solution, and where we see that ticketing is everything what you sell. So it is more a token. It's a token. We heard this before, but this is a token in a system. You should think on it. What they told this morning, that was only a token, what they told. Only a small part of the big ball where everything in is running. That's what you have to think always on, that it is nice what he told this morning about blockchain, but it's only one point in the whole circle. So we thought, okay, the next thing, I was looking 3 years now already for face recognition software, because we have ideas how you can do with additional intelligence to make face recognition software better than it is until now. And in January this year, I found a company which has a very good facial recognition on vectors, and we are building on this moment around it a platform so that you can use it later on as plug-in. That's, again, only one point in the big circle that you can plug it in and use it in all your software, all your hardware. So you can trust the face. And if you do this, the security on the internet will be much better because the computer recognizes you. But also by the ticket, you can only in with the ticket if they recognize your face. You can't sell the ticket to anyone else, so they can't ask a higher price. That are things we do. And one other thing where Elizabeth talked about with startups, we did it in the 80s and 90s also in Europe, because then it was normal that students created by themselves, there's a couple of them, startups. Then we had 10 years that there were nearly no startups, but the last 5, 6 years, it's growing in the Netherlands. And we're working minimum with 2 or 3 startups, always together, to create their product, what they can sell. And mostly we want to do it as an add-on plug or something that also other companies can share. Thank you for your attention.
미스터 테오, 미스터 테오는 콤보 소프트웨어 회사 1983년도에 창업을 해서 지금까지 하면서 다양한 실패 경험을 우리에게 생생하게 잘 전달해 주신 것 같습니다. 최근에 말씀하신 것 중에서 그 얼굴 인식에 관련된 그런 그 소프트웨어, 인공지능하고 결합돼서 한 소프트웨어 그 스타트업들이 많이 생겨나고 있는데, 최근에 어떤 자료를 보니까요, 얼굴 인식 소프트웨어 세계 3대 그 신생 기업이 중국에 있다, 뭐 이런 얘기를 하는데, 조금 제가 얼굴 인식이 보편화가 되면 빅브라더 시대가 좀 더 우려가 되는 그런 부분이 좀 있더라고요. 예, 고맙고요. 다음 발표해 주실 분이 토마스 베라겐. 예, 오케이.
Big Brother will not so be important, because if you only put the vectors in your database, you never know who it is. So Big Brother can't reach you. That's the nice thing. Yeah, so I don't need encryption.
Okay.
I only,
Thank you.
from your face, I only put 99 vectors in the database. That's all.
오케이, 걱정하지 않겠습니다. 예, 다음 스피커는 토마스 베라겐. 오케이, so your turn. 예, 지속 가능한 에너지 프로젝트, 서스테이너빌리티 에너지 프로젝트.
One second, please. Does the thing work? Yes, hi. Can I walk around or can I'll sit? I'll sit, don't worry. Hi, I'm Thomas. I work at the University of Cambridge. I have a background as a banker. And within Cambridge, I'm responsible for working with a group of banks on something called sustainability leadership. And today I'm going to speak about brilliant success, failure, and decision-making under complexity. First, I will talk about sustainability. What is it? Why it's important? How come that we need collaboration? And why collaboration and sustainability are both complex. And then I'm going to give some examples of complex collaborations which went wrong or right, kind of depends on what direction you look at, in the energy market, the clean energy market. So what's sustainability? There's no one definition of sustainability, but the first time it emerged, people spoke about human development that meets the need of us in the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it's not necessarily about animals, it's not necessarily about plants, it's about humanity being able to continue. That's what sustainability is about. And you see some pictures here. I'm going to be really quick about it because I know that we have limited time. But, enough water for everybody, but not too much so that we won't have flooding, enough clean air, a healthy energy system, an ocean which doesn't acidify, right? So it doesn't become too sour, not good water cycles so that we don't have drought. And then biodiversity. The last one is a dodo. It's a bird which doesn't exist anymore. I thought, well, it's a bit of a pity that it doesn't exist anymore. So the United Nations has a definition of that as well, and I think Prime Minister Balkenende spoke about that this morning. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals. It's many, many goals, 17 goals, and they've been compiled by the governments of the countries of the world. And you can imagine that well, firstly, it's a lot of goals about a lot of sustainability issues, and also a lot of negotiation and a lot of conversations and dialogues have taken place in negotiations to get this list of goals. It's a really complex topic, firstly, and then dealing with it is really complex as well. So why is it important? Well, I'm going to look at climate change, the one at the bottom left, and I'm going to walk through what climate change has done. So this is a timeline of Earth's average temperature from 20,000, well, that's 10 too little, 20,000 before Christ until now. And it compares the temperature, the world temperature, to the 1961-1990 average. So basically, was the temperature, was the climate, was it warmer or colder as compared to the period of 1961 to 1990? So what you're going to see, I'm going to chop it up in 5,000-year blocks. The last ice age was there, and I'm going to go, you have the Lascaux cave murals, first humans, This is all of humanity which is emerging, right? So Yahoo settled, the wheels invented, the pyramids. This is where the first king of Korea founded his kingdom, Dangun, in 2333 before Christ, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Then the Mayas came after Korea, Buddha came after Korea, Jesus came after Korea. Then we had all of the Middle Ages in Europe. We had industrialization, and then you can see that the temperature it goes up. Well, you see that from 1 BC, the birth of Christ, to 1000 BC, it's almost flat. It goes down a little bit, and then whoop, it spikes up. And that's a projection. Another projection, another projection. So what are these projections about? We think at Cambridge that it's worth taking action. You see these projections here, right? So the lower one is the best case scenario. There's no global political will to achieve this. And if you try to imagine that, it's been pretty hot, in the past few years globally. That's what we would keep, right? So it wouldn't go up anymore. The second one is the Paris Agreement. It's a 2-degree scenario. You might have heard of the Paris Agreement 2 years ago. It's a major milestone, I think, in the history of humanity, that all of these people came together and understood that we have to do something for, our planet You know, if I have to describe what I am, you know, I'm a traveler on a blue marble. I think we all are. This Paris Agreement was a major step. So the red thing, lo and behold, drum roll, that's the path which we are on. So it's going to be really hot in here, as a rapper once said. Compare that to the definition of sustainability. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's exactly what we're doing with a red stripe. So we need to do something. That's what I wanted to show here. And we are doing stuff, you know, globally. People everywhere. In Korea, in the Netherlands, in the United States, in Africa, everywhere. And many types of parties need to be involved in these sustainability efforts. You know, you need to collaborate, there will be conflict, and you need to get over it in order to get on the right path. So we're going to have the politicians, very sympathetic folks, you know, some of them a bit more than others. Then you have the activists saying, well, you know, love Mother Earth, we need to do more. You have business people, you know, business people, they want to do the right thing, but at the same time, they have to keep an eye on all the stuff Elizabeth just said. You know, you need to keep your cash flow in order. And then there's judges and regulators. These are particularly funny ones, and that's in the UK. That's why they wear these wigs. At some point, I thought about changing my career when I saw these wigs. I thought, oh, I can use a little bit of that. But, well, you know, I stayed with banking. So, and then there's us all, consumers and voters, you know. And everybody's involved, and everybody has a voice, and everybody sees things from their own perspective. So that's complex. People come in, people come out. There's going to be all kinds of feedback mechanisms. You don't know what's going to happen next, but still, together we need to move somewhere. So it's, as I said, complex. It's not complicated. Complicated is this. This is IKEA. It's a cupboard from IKEA, the PAX, you might know it. If you follow all the steps, and you put it together, you have a beautiful cupboard. Well, that's not how sustainability works. It's also not how startups work, I believe. There's something to do with a tiger. Well, you know, the collaboration has to do with a tiger as well. I have a different picture. It's more like this. This is what working together with all these people is like. It's a triple pendulum. It turns around, and it's going to turn around 41 times. But it started at slightly different spots. And you're going to see what's going to happen. Working with banks, financiers, politicians, consumers, judges, it's kind of like this. How are you going to do it? You know, you can't pinpoint them and say, do this or do that. It's a total mess. So that's why us at Cambridge think that, you know, leadership is needed in order for people to be able to navigate, not control, these type of processes. I think that's what all the people here speak about. You can't control it. You can try to identify what's going on, early stage recognize patterns, and then navigate. So, University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. We think that developing sustainability leadership, besides business leadership and political leadership and social leadership, all kinds of leadership, but the sustainability leadership is crucial. So what we offer and what we do is we have executive education in Cambridge. We have graduate education. People can do master's programs in Cambridge. We engage with policymakers. So, for example, I helped in the past few months the European Commission, basically the government of Europe, to change the laws for all banks, investment companies, and insurance companies in Europe, which is, you know, now being copied by the Chinese government. And then we have global industry leadership platforms, they call it. Basically, groups of companies, policymakers, and finance companies who work together. So leadership is needed when failures can turn out to become successes, or successes can turn out to become failures. This sounds a bit complex. I wrote it last night at 2:30, so please excuse me for that. But I'm going to give two clean energy examples, and then I'm going to leave it at that, keep it short. So the Germany's Energiewende. I don't know whether you have heard of that, but Germany moved to clean energy a long time ago. That was inspired by their worry about the Cold War. Germany was right in the middle between the West on the one hand and the Russians on the other hand. There were a lot of nuclear bombs in between. You know, so it was somewhat a situation which might be comparable to Korea, and the people in Germany were very much worried about nuclear bombs and nuclear energy. So they didn't want that anymore. So they campaigned for 20 years that they didn't want it anymore. Then they changed the law in 2000, it had to be changed in the energy mix had to be changed into clean energy, a lot of wind, a lot of solar energy, and people who produced solar energy got a subsidy. So basically, if you put solar on your rooftop and you start selling solar energy, you get a fixed price, which is at a high level for 20 years. 20 years. And at some point, all these Germans thought, well, that's a good deal. Join it. So you say, well, that's a success. Actually not, because it was such a success that the German taxpayers had to pay 50% more for the electricity because all of their fellow citizens were so enthusiastic about the idea of making a little money and selling it on to the electricity company. In 2010, 44% of global solar voltaic cells was bought by Germans in order to be able to get the money. So the government tries to tone it down a little bit, but they're going to be stuck with a higher price until 2031-32. The benefit of this is to us all, who's not a German. If you're not a German taxpayer, this is beneficial. Because of the Germans buying so much of these solar cells, because they bought almost half of the solar cells in that period, they made it very cheap and the technology developed really fast, which allowed second mover countries like China and India to step in. So basically, the Germans pay a lot and the rest of us benefit. I don't know whether it's a success or a failure, a little bit of both, but I'm happy with it. The second one, and then I'm going to stop, is the no nukes movement. And this is a bit of a political thing, perhaps. I'm speaking as Thomas here, I'm not speaking as Cambridge. But in the 70s, there was a very good reason not to want to have nuclear bombs. And I think that's a very good reason, because we don't want to blow up the planet. The effect of the no nukes movement, which was very successful, is that the development of nuclear reactors and nuclear energy was more or less halted. So we had the first generation reactors, second generation reactors until from the 60s to the 90s. That was basically military grade equipment, not very useful for civic use on a smaller scale, and there were some risks, many risks connected to that. What we saw in Fukushima, for example, wasn't put in the right place, but also it was a second generation reactor. Investment in the development of third generation, fourth generation, and fifth generation reactors, which could help us all have a clean energy future, was stopped because of the honorable and good cause of not having nuclear weapons. So the demonstrations were very successful, but it halted the technological development. I think I slightly overrun over time, but I want to thank you very much for your attention. This is my name, and if you're interested in CISL, have a look at the website, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. 최근에 한국에서도 새로운 정보가 들어서면서 신재생 에너지의 활용도를 높이는 그런 정책들을 많이 하고 있습니다. 아마 지금 미스터 토마스가 발표한 사례가 상당히 중요한 교훈이 될 것 같습니다. 다시 한번 감사드리고요. 다음에는 클라우디아 리켄께서 발표를 해주시겠습니다. Next speaker is 클라우디아 리켄.
Thank you. I prefer to stay, so if that is allowed. Thank you for the opportunity to share something about the development of drugs. How does it work? It works like this. First, before I start, let's have a quick look in how medication is developed. Basically, first of all, of course, we need to find a mode of action and a target to treat a certain disease. And then at a certain point of time, this works like this probably, yeah? Oh, it's a very fancy mouse. Can you see something? Yeah. Basically, we first start looking on what does the drug in the body. Then we try in a very small group of people whether it's safe and whether there are not too many adverse events in the body. Then we go to a small group of people, a couple of hundreds of them, looking whether it really treats the disease that we do have in mind. Then we go to a broader group of people, and at phase 4, that's what we usually call post-marketing. Then the drug is registered, it's in the market, and then we are looking at the long-term safety of the drug. So that's just a little insight. Now, if we speak about failures, maybe the pharmaceutical industry is the most failing industry in the world, because we start with 10,000 compounds, and only one of them, most of the times, will enter the market. So in between, a lot of things happen which make that the product cannot be further developed. And if you look in the phases of where we speak about, and in the first 3 to 6 years, as you see, the majority of compounds will not be further developed. Then if we go into humans, we will see in all the 3 phases more products failing. And the total process of coming to the market in the current stage is, well, nearly 12 to 13 years. So a very long period. The cost of this failing are enormous. Maybe first look at the right picture. If you look at the cost per phase, basically, in phase 2, the chance of not continuing is the lowest, but the costs are nearly the highest. So that phase, $390 million US in general, on average, is a very costly phase, and in general, the entire process of developing a drug lies between 1 and sometimes even $3 billion US, and that's basically because if you look at the left side, if in phase 2 things happen where you cannot develop further, you have to go back to phase 1 and start investing again. So it's a sort of cumulative process, very lengthy and very risky. Reasons why we fail that much are a variety, a large number of reasons. An important reason is that the drug doesn't enter the body at the place where it has to go to. For example, if you speak about oncology drugs, if the drug will not go into the tumor then and will not enter the body in an appropriate way, then we cannot use it. And we can only see that after we've, well, used the drug into the body. You can't see that so much in animal models, for example. Sometimes a problem is a complex administration mode. For example, it's difficult to make a fluid, an infusion, or a tablet from the product. Another problem is toxicity, where the risk benefits, so does it good for the human body versus the adverse events that you get, is a reason why at a certain point of time we say we will not further develop the drug. The efficacy is a very normal one or a logical one. If the drug doesn't work, why developing it? There are a number of commercial reasons. May sound strange, but governments for some diseases where there are many generic drugs are in the market, have their reasons not to reimburse new inventions which are very costly. So that might also be a reason not to develop a product further. And then the patent protection, if the patent protection is very small time and the return of investment of all the investment that you've done during the development process may be another reason as well. And there are other, can be different other reasons to fail as well. And then when the product has gone through this entire process and it reaches the market, then there are other problems as well. An interesting example in that respect is the thalidomide case, an old drug in the early 60s used as an innocent drug where nobody knew the very extreme damaging side effects. You may know the children which have very small limbs. Basically, that drug was on the market. Of course, after it's known that when people get pregnant, this is the result of having used that drug during pregnancy, the drug was taken off the market. But then, I think some 10 to 15 years later, the research started again, and the drug is now again on the market with very special precautions, of course, not becoming pregnant, and also males not using it when the woman has a wish to become pregnant. But the drug is effective now in a number of other, and actually very effective in another indication. So it's not maybe an example of a brilliant failure, but it is an example of where something that initially failed ultimately has a value for humans in the market currently. And then if you're interested in what happens after you reach the market, if you go to, for example, Wikipedia or on the internet, you will find that in the last decades there are about 150 products which were withdrawn from registration after that they came to the market, because when it was used by a bigger population, new adverse events, less efficacy, all different reasons, caused the fact that they were no longer allowed to be registered. There are many examples of this as well. But although we had very many failures, I think the successes in drug development significantly changed the world. We know now that if people have hepatitis C, which in the past was a deadly disease, deadly, or you need to have a transplant, a liver transplant, 95% of the patients in Europe, but it is a global number, if you get the disease, in 4 months treatments afterward, you are completely free of the disease. So you can be completely cured. I think that's progression in life-changing treatments. The same is, well, not exactly the same, but 37% is still a high number, is applicable for cardiovascular disease. I actually also found a number on Korea saying that 30% less diabetes-related death rates in the last years or the last decades because of better treatments have becoming available. The mortality rates in oncology have gone down significantly and are expected to further go down due to all the knowledge that we are building there. And also the HIV, so the AIDS, has become more or less not a deadly disease anymore, but a long-term disease. You can live, if you are a little bit lucky and have the right medication, more than 30 years with HIV currently. So I think even although we had many failures, if there are successes, they really changed the way we have our treatments currently. And also some of the treatments were not even planned to take place. As Paul already said about serendipity, these are a couple of examples of drugs that were developed because of different reasons, but then they found out, hey, it might work better in a different disease area. Gilenya is a drug which is used in relapse-remitting multiple sclerosis, but it was initially developed as a new drug to prevent rejection after transplant. In that disease area, it didn't work. It didn't sufficiently work. But when researchers thought about the mode of action, they found, well, it may be something that could change the pattern of multiple sclerosis, which is a very severe muscle disease, and it did. So afterwards, it was registered for this disease. The same is applicable for Topamax, which is an anti-epileptic used by very many people with epilepsy. That was initially a hypoclemic drug, but it didn't work in diabetes. But in epilepsy, it works well. It has really an added benefit. Well, in the blue pill, I think everyone of you probably know, it was never developed for the indication that all of you know. It was meant to be a product for cardiovascular disease. There it didn't work what the researchers had in mind, but it was, well, one of the big successes of Pfizer's afterwards. So pretty brilliant failures. Just to finish now, and it's a little bit of a difficult picture, but I'll try to explain it. How to overcome now this lengthy process of drug development and the many failures in between. I think technology is the key in here. In the past, we had, well, not so many opportunities to find new targets for new drugs, so that's this scarcity of drug discovery. And the drug process was planned in different phases, and only at the end of a certain phase we knew whether a drug would work or not. And that's why it took that long. Now we have a completely different entrance situation because we have a pharmacogenetic profile known up front. Computers allow us to find many more drug targets even before we start the research. And we can predict much better which kind of patients benefit from a certain drug and which not. And if we start, now in the past, for example, people would come in a protocolized way to a doctor seeing if the drug works in a clinical trial. And in between the 2 or 3 weeks, the doctor wouldn't know how the patient would be doing. Currently, with wearables, with domotics, with all the technologies that people have at home, the clinical study patients can be followed much better. You have much more data, and in a sooner phase, all this information can lead to an adjustment of the trial design, which is actually allowed by authorities, which means that on the beginning of the trial, you better specify which kind of patients benefit, and during the trial, you build in agility to change faster, to reduce development times. And I tend to believe that that will definitely change the amount of time that will be used in the future for developing new drugs, but also the efficiency. And that ultimately will come back in the price, because if you do it faster with less patients, hopefully then the cost will go down as well. I think that's it for now. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Claudia. 예. 오늘 특별 자담을 시작할 때 사회자로서 약간 좀 부담감이 있었습니다. 우리 지금 플로어에 계신 분들 좀 편하게 듣고 이제 다 이해가 되시죠? 잘. 맨 처음에 오늘 실패 사례를 발표해 주실 연사 스피커들이 너무 메이저 필드가 너무 스펙트럼이 넓어서 실패 사례를 어떻게 하나를 모아서 잘 정리를 할 수 있을까라고 생각을 하고 이 세션이 스타트가 됐는데요. 시간이 지나면서 다양한 것들 통해서 하나가 무엇인가가 나올 수 있을 것 같다라는 희망을 제가 또 보고 있습니다. 이 프로그램을 사실 주관해 주신, 만들어 주신 분이 프로페서 폴 이스케인데요. 잘 구성을 하신 것 같습니다. 예, 마지막으로요. 오래 기다리셨습니다. 서강대학교의 변부환 교수님, 예, 프로페서 변부환. 변부환 교수님은 네덜란드에서 오랫동안 비즈니스에 계셨기 때문에 아마 마지막으로요. 파이널리 한국과 외국의 사례에서의 실패 사례를 잘 비교해서 좀 설명을 해주실 거로 믿겠습니다. 네, 부탁드리겠습니다. 네.
서강대학교의 변부환입니다. 예, 오늘 다양한 분들이 많은 실패 사례들을 다양한 분야에서 말씀을 드려가지고 분위기가 약간 좀 실패만 얘기를 하니까 다운된 것 같은데요. 두 가지를 정리를 한번 해보려고 합니다. 그리고 저는 오늘 저에게 주어진 시간을 사회 문화적인 측면에서 실패는 과연 우리가 어떻게 극복을 하고 어떻게 이거를 매니지해 나갈 건지에 대해서 제 경험을 바탕으로 한 얘기를 좀 드리겠습니다. 우선 실패를 정의함에 있어서 실패는 우리 모두가 원하는 바를 이루지 못한 거, 그게 이제 금전적인 게 됐든지 아닌 것이 됐든지 간에 그러한 것들을 실패라고 이야기를 합니다. 오늘 이렇게 많은 분들이 이야기를 하셨는데 정말 다양한 사례들, 어떤 분들은 조직 내에서 작게는 수백억, 많게는 수천억 이상의 실패를 경험하신 분들도 계시고요. 또 어떤 분들은 새로운 제약, 어떤 분들은 환경, 그 다음에 지속 가능한 개발 이런 분야에서도 실패를 경험을 하고 매니지를 하고 계신 사례들을 보신 겁니다. 우리가 하나 여기서 알아야 될 점이 그럼에도 불구하고 이분들은 그 프로세스를 실패를 하게 된 프로세스를 잘 정리를 하셨다는 겁니다. 정리를 하시고 첫 번째는 이해를 하시고 그리고 다시는 그런 것들이 반복이 되지 않게끔 거기에서 새로운 지식을 끌어내려고 하셨기 때문에 오늘 이 자리에 계신 게 아닌가 저는 이렇게 생각이 되고요. 또 하나는 제가 여기서 느낀 바는 실패는 비단 우리 대한민국 그리고 나에게만 있는 일이 아니구나. 정말로 이렇게 많은 분들도 다양한 백그라운드와 다양한 그런 어떤 문화, 기업 뭐 다양한 그러한 환경 속에서 많은 분들이 다 늘 공감을 하고 겪고 계신 일들이구나. 그래서 그러면 우리 대한민국에 던지는 메시지는 무엇인가? 이런 실패가 몇 가지 제 경험을 바탕으로 좀 정리를 해드리려고 합니다. 우선 이분들이 제가 생각할 때 이러한 실패 사례를 가지고 극복을 하실 수 있었던 가장 큰 힘은 용기가 아닌가, 그리고 자기 자신에 대한 어떤 신념, 믿음이 아닌가 저는 이렇게 생각합니다. 제가 15년 전에 한국을 떠나서 네덜란드에서 지금까지 생활을 하고 있습니다. 그리고 지금 이제 그 네덜란드에서는 큰 은행에서 이렇게 근무를 하고 있습니다. 제가 한국을 떠나기 전에 여러분도 많이 공감하실 거라고 저는 생각이 되는데요. 뭔가 하나를 잘못을 하면 큰 그거에 대한 퍼니시먼트, 그거에 대한 어떤 질책과 그거에 따른 그 보상이 아니고 책임을 묻는 그러한 문화가 한국 사회에서 되게 팽배했던 것 같습니다. 학교에서도 그랬고요. 그리고 제가 이제 군 생활을 할 때도 군에서도 그랬고요. 그러한 것들이 제 개인적으로 하여금 너무나 사회적인 틀 속에 가두게 되는 그러한 틀을 만들었고, 그러한 환경이 직장 생활을 하면서도 또 그렇게 많이 만드는 게 아닌가. 또 그러한 것들이 궁극적으로는 창의성과 새로운 어떤 방식들에 대한 도전, 그 다음에 탐험에 대해서도 많은 문제를 만들지 않나 이렇게 개인적으로 생각을 해봅니다. ABN AMRO라는 은행은 네덜란드에서 제일 큰 은행 중에 하나입니다. 매년 그 CEO께서 직접 직원들의 만족도를 평가를 하세요. 그 항목 중에 가장 저에게 늘 인상 깊게 다가왔던 항목이 하나가 있습니다. 그게 바로 당신은 당신의 의견을 만들 때, 당신의 의견을 개진할 때 두려움을 느끼느냐. 조직 내에서 이분은 두려움이 싫으신 거예요. 왜냐하면 그 두려움을 갖고 있다는 자체가 개개인의 창의성과 개개인의 새로운 방식의 일을 함에 있어서 큰 제약 요건이 되기 때문이죠. 또 하나 사례를 말씀드리면 제가 이제 승진을 하려고 열심히 일을 했습니다. 성과도 좋고 열심히 일을 했어요. 근데 몇 년 전에 그 이제 위에 본부장께서 딱 얘기를 하시더니 부하는 자기의 의견이 많이 있지가 않고 늘 다른 사람들이 얘기를 하면 그 의견을 따라가는 경향이 있지 않느냐, 이러한 제가 피드백을 받았거든요. 사회 문화적인 아주 그 큰 차이를 보여주는 단면이 아닌가 저는 이렇게 생각이 됩니다. 왜냐하면은 자기 생각이 있고 자기 의견이 있다는 얘기는 자기의 신념이 있다는 얘기거든요. 그러한 자기 신념이 명확하게 있지 않고 두려움이 늘 조직 내에 존재를 한다면 결국 실패를 한다고 하더라도 실패의 프로세스를 복기를 하고 생각을 하고 그리고 다음 도전을 하기가 저는 상당히 어렵다고 생각이 됩니다. 그래서 한국 사회에 저는 제안드리고 싶은 게 한 가지가 있는데요. 여러분들 잘 아시겠지만 한국이 정말로 경제적으로도 엄청나게 발전을 했고 그리고 지금 IT 이렇게 시대, 4차 산업혁명의 시대가 4차 산업시대가 다가오면서 더 주목을 받고 있는 게 사실입니다. 하지만 한국이 불명예스럽게도 OECD 국가 중에 수년 동안 1위를 하고 있는 게 한 가지 있습니다. 뭔지 아세요? 예? 크게 말씀하셔도 되는데. 예. 자살률입니다. 예. 한국에 계신 분들이 제일 먼저 이렇게 죽게 되는 그 5번째 요인이 자살입니다. 예. 결국 실패 그리고 사회적인 두려움, 재기에 대한 두려움은 그런 것들을 어떻게 극복하냐에 따라서 정말로 소중한 우리 사회의 생명까지도 구할 수 있는 그런 중요한 저는 문제가 중요한 부분이기 때문에 정말 두려움을 극복하고 새로운 도전을 할 수 있는 그러한 힘을 얻는, 서로 격려도 하고 할 수 있는 그러한 모습들이 한국 사회에서 좀 더 많이 이렇게 발생해야 되지 않느냐 이렇게 생각을 하고요. 끝으로 우리 폴 교수님부터 많은 분들이 말씀하셨는데 이렇게 마무리를 정리를 하고 싶습니다. 실패는 옵션이다. 두려워하지 마시고 계속 도전하시기 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. 예, 정 교수님께서 한국의 그 여러 가지 뭐 문화적인 환경을 고려해서 말씀을 잘 해주셨습니다. 예, 최근에 어떤 그 스타트업 CEO를 제가 뵌 적이 있는데요. 투자기관으로부터 주기적으로 너무나 많은 그 보고 리포트가 많이 요구돼서 참 힘들다. 두 번째가 이제 그 스타트업 투자기관에서 가장 중요하게 보는 게 그 리더십, CEO들을 특히 리더십을 본다. 이런 말씀을 하셨는데요. 지금까지 쭉 말씀을 들어본 가운데서 한국은 이제 지금 우리 그 스피커들께서 살아왔던 그런 그 나라와는 전혀 다른 문화를 가지고 있습니다. 비록 한국에 많이 오시진 않으셨지만 나름대로 바깥에서 바라보셨을 때 지금 한국은 실패를 특히 브릴리언트한 찬란한 실패를 체계화시키고 그것을 교훈으로 해서 또 다른 새로운 성공의 디딤돌이 되게끔 하는 무엇을 하는 노력들이 지금까지는 좀 약했습니다. 프로페서 폴 이스케는 그 중에서 브릴리언트 페일리어 인스티튜트 연구소를 운영하시면서 특히 CFO를 또 역임을 하신 특이한 경력을 갖고 계시더라고요. Chief Failure Officer. 예, 아주 바람직한 포지션인 것 같습니다. 예, 한국에는 그런 포지션이 아직 없습니다. 그래서 지금 한국 문화와 접목을 해서 또 한국의 또 비즈니스 환경과 비교해서 볼 때 지금 찬란한 실패 또는 어떤 실패로부터 배우는 것들이 한국에서 체계적으로 정착이 되기 위해서는 어떤 것이 장애 요인, 배리어인지 또는 어떤 것들이 더 한국의 강점으로 가능하게 할 수 있는 좋은 것들인지를 뭐 나름대로 밖에서 보셨을 때 느낀 점을 한번 조언을 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 그 프로페서 폴 이스케부터 먼저 이렇게 자유롭게 좀 얘기해 주시면 좋겠고요. 그 중에서 특히 무엇이 체인지 변화가 돼야 되는지 한국에서 성공적으로 실패로부터 배우는 어떤 여러 가지 레슨들 교훈들이 잘 정착되게 할 수 있는지를 한번 좀 편하게 이렇게 느끼는 뭐 한국 뭐 많이 오신 분도 계시지만 또 몇 번 안 오신 분도 계실 거예요. 그렇지만 뭐 인터넷이라든가 또는 한국 분들하고 비즈니스를 하면서 많이 겪어 보셨기 때문에 나름대로 객관적으로 밖에서 본 시각으로 편하게 말씀해 주셨으면 큰 도움이 되겠습니다. 그럼 프로페서 폴 이스케부터 you first start to answer. Okay?
Yes. I think I understood the question, and otherwise the answer will be a brilliant failure. Anyway, I studied failures all over the world, and every part of the world you will find another culture. And there are elements in the culture that will stimulate learning from failures, accepting failures, and there are always elements that make it more difficult. So in that sense, Korea is not different otherwise than you have your own barriers and your own enablers. We did some cultural studies, and as an example, United States is always mentioned as the country where people can fail very often. If you went bankrupt and you try it again, and people say, oh, that's great, you learned a lot, and if you not failed, then what did you learn? So that's one side of the story. And Mrs. Kleinfeld can confirm herself, she's from United States. But on the other hand, people are not so much forgiving if they fail. As an example, yesterday I had a discussion with Mr. Foyler, the founder of the Heritage Foundation, and I was referring to the person who made a mistake a couple of months ago when there was an alarm in Hawaii. They thought there was a missile coming to the state. And actually what happened is that he was operating a warning system and he pressed the wrong button. And there was one button stating test and there was another one stating missile alert. And instead of pressing the test button, he pressed the other button. And so the whole state panicked and everyone thought there is a nuclear bomb coming to us, and it was just a false alarm. And now I asked Mr. Follmer, what did you think happened with this person? And he said, I hope he was fired. And I said, I hope they were fixing the system, because it's strange that you can push just one wrong button and the whole The whole state freaks out. By the way, I think they should have kept him in his job, because if there's one person who will never make this mistake again, it's probably this person. So now you see, it is a very more or less schizophrenic situation where on one hand people are very much stimulated to fail and start companies again and again and again. And on the other hand, just one simple guy operating a stupid system, he makes one mistake and he should be fired. So I think every culture has its pros and its cons. So I think what you should look at in Korea, first of all, learn together with us, learn from others. And you see that other companies, other countries are also learning from failures, and they try to find a way how to create an environment that they're supporting this. That's one thing. The second thing, I think, if you never underestimate yourselves. Like the Prime Minister Balkan already stated, well, we are full in admiration of what you have achieved in the past 60, 70 years. I think if you do a good historical research, probably you have done also many things that didn't work, but you didn't care. You just moved on because you saw the goal you want. You had the energy and you had each other. So I think that could also help you. The third thing, when we do a cultural analysis, we see a lot of caretaking about each other. You're quite an inclusive society. That should be helpful. On the other side, what we also do, and Mr. Boambien also referred to that, is a very hierarchical society, which means that there is some people are sometimes afraid of talking to the bosses or to the government or to maybe the child to the parent that something didn't work. That is something you need to address, because, like I stated, in fact, it should be a human right, a fundamental human right. To try and to fail. There's nobody who learns to ride a bicycle without falling. If you would say, well, let's create for each other an environment, let's create also for myself an environment where we feel free and we are not being punished because we only tried and we failed, that is the most, I think the most urgent advice I could give to you. And I think you deserve it. You all work hard. You all have the good intentions. So trust each other that is what it is. You have good intentions. Forget about the rest.
Okay, so next, Mr. Thomas. 토마스 다음에 엘리자베스께서 엘리자베스 그 다음에 해주고 예. 오케이 엘리자베스 먼저 예.
Yeah, that could be something as well. If you have a Brilliant Failure Award here, that helps to break down the barriers and make it okay to fail because you're learning from it. Thank you.
Celebrate failure.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Perhaps to the question and building on the point just made by Paul and by Elizabeth. What could be done in Korea? Because every place is different, every people is different, right? So there's a lot of Dutch people sitting here. Perhaps that's not a coincidence, because we have something in common, and we have a common approach. I think what's underlying this approach is something which is being studied in philosophy, specifically ethics. There's different approaches to ethics which people can have. You can have a consequential ethics, which focuses on the consequences of an action. And you can have an intentional ethics, which focuses on the intention behind an action. The famous example is if you can save 3 lives by people who are lying on a railroad, and you can stop the train coming over the railroad by pushing one person from a bridge on top of that train to stop it, would you do it? Well, typically, an intentional ethics would say you have to do it because you save 3 people for 1. A consequential one would say that. An intentional one would say, well, no, I can't take the life of anybody else, or I would feel very, very, I would feel a conflict within myself. And every culture in the world, I think, has to be, it's worth researching, but I think every culture in the world has both of these ethics, right? So the sword and the care. And if you can look into what elements of Korean culture align with this intentional ethics, like the intention behind doing something, Perhaps that's a fertile place to start thinking about topics such as this.
Can I add to this? 아주 그 토마스 씨께서 아주 좋은 말씀해 주셨는데요. 이제 그게 어떤 결과 드리븐, 결과가 발생한 거를 초점을 맞춰서 그 뭐 페널티도 주고 컴펜세이션도 주고 할 것이냐, 아니면은 그 목적이 순수하게 좋은 의도였는지 아니면은 그렇지 않았는지를 이렇게 뭐 보는 측면도 있고, 그래서 어떤 결과 위주냐 아니면은 그 목적 인텐션 위주냐라고 말씀을 하셨는데, 저는 아주 좋은 그 지적이라고 생각을 하고, 저는 이 사항을 초연결성의 시대가 지금 도래를 하고 있는데, 이 초연결성의 시대는 좀 더 모든 것들이 투명하게 다 드러나는 그런 특성을 가지고 있기 때문에 투명성과 신뢰에 기반한 이러한 각종의 우리 인터넷을 통한 그런 기술들이 저런 두 가지 측면들을 좀 더 쉽게 만들어갈 수 있는 그런 환경을 제공하지 않을까, 저는 또 한편으로 그렇게 생각을 합니다.
네. 예, 좀 전에 우리 토마스께서 그 철학 윤리에 대한 중요성을 말씀해 주셨습니다. 제가 2년 전, 3년 전에 그 감명 깊게 본 영화가 있는데요. 톰 행크스가 주연한 썰리 허드슨 강의 기적, 더 미러클 오브 더 허드슨 리버, 혹시 보셨습니까? 뉴욕을 출발한 비행기가 결국은 새떼를 만나서 엔진이 브로큰되면서 허드슨 강에 불시착하는 장면인데, 결국은 155명 정도 되는가요? 그 추운 겨울날 영하 10m 됐을 겁니다. 저는 다 구조를 했지만 결국은 미 항공 안전국이라고 하나요? 거기 조사를 굉장히 강도 높게 합니다. 스킬의 문제였는지 아니면 명령을 어겼는지, 관제탑의 명령을 어겼거든요. 왜 어겼는지 하는 실패에 관련된 것들을 철저하게, 마지막에는 시뮬레이션을 하죠. 굉장히 비싼 그 비용을 들여서 시뮬레이션을 했는데, 시뮬레이션을 하고 나서 그 당시에 조사국에서, 안전조사국에서 내린 결론이 몰아가는 거죠. 당신이 명령을 듣지 않았기 때문에 많은 패신저들을 위험한 환경에 빠뜨렸다라고 했는데, 마지막 반전이 되는 게 이제 이분이 휴먼 팩터가 있다. 사람은 순간적으로 판단을 할 수가 없다. 인공지능 기계처럼 1, 2초 만에 상황 판단이 이루어지지 않는다. We need a second or third 몇 분이 시간이 필요하다. few minutes까지는 아니지만 few second까지는 시간이 필요하다. 그 시간 동안에 판단을 하면 빌딩에 크래시가 된다. 그래서 그 말이 맞다라고 본 적이 있습니다. 두 가지죠. 지금 우리 토마스께서 말씀하신 내 소명의식, 직업에 대한 소명의식, 그리고 인간이 가지고 있는 고유한 고유한 직관력, 판단력, 이런 것들이 복합적으로 실패를 극복한 사례를 보여주는 영화 아니었나, 저는 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다. 시간이 좀 남았는데요. 아마 미스터 테오.
Can I say something about the movie?
오케이.
Because
영화에 대해서 movie.
I love the movie, and it's perfectly right, like you mentioned it.
Okay.
And it was as well a decision that the pilot had to make, because the tower thought he had enough fuel to reach the airport, and he with his experience thought, I don't have enough fuel to reach the airport, and he made a decision based on the experience that he had to overrule the tower. And they did many, as you said, many simulations, and ultimately the experts thought the experience of the pilot was better, and he made the right decision. Took a long investigation. It was very, I mean, the movie is really worth, I can't recall the name, but the movie is worth to see it. It's very nice. So it's personal and human experience that was ultimately more accurate than all the fuel calculations that were done in the past.
There's another great example here. That is,
It takes time. Yeah, okay.
there's another great example here. This is a Russian officer who was watching the missile warning system, and the system indicated that there were a lot of missiles launched on its way from the United States to Russia. And he thought, this cannot be true. But the protocol said he should warn his superiors at that moment. And he didn't do that because he thought this must be a mistake of the system. And at the end of the day, if he would have warned his superiors, probably Russia would have reacted with sending missiles as well. But there were no missiles. It was indeed a system mistake. And at the end of the day, he was being criticized that he didn't follow the protocol. And though a lot of people believe that he has saved us from the Third World War. And very late in his career, he was almost dead, he was rehabilitated and he got some very small state pension.
Okay.
Perhaps not to take the floor too much, but I think there's a very famous, a very good example of a big Korean company who dealt with failures and with the culture of hierarchy in a way which was very successful by changing its culture. And actually, I used that company to get here today. It's Korean Air. Korean Air had a history with, I don't know whether it was number 1 or number 2 or number 3, but some of the highest number of plane crashes in the history of aviation. And there was a research why that was the case. And the research found out that it had to do with the hierarchical relationships in the cockpit. And with the secondary pilot and tertiary pilot not communicating if something goes wrong to their superiors. Korean Air acted upon that. They acted upon that because they understand that you can't have crashes too much. You can't be the number 1 crash champion if you're an if you're an airliner. It's bad. It's ethically it's not good, but it's not good for business either. Right? So these two things feed into each other, and they changed the procedures, and they officially provided the junior officers with the mandate to speak up and to act towards their superiors. And they did that firstly to save lives and to take their responsibility as citizens. And secondly, because it's in the interest of the companies. Because in the long run, I'm completely convinced that in the long run, honest and sustainable business is the only profitable business which there is.
The movie is called Sully.
Okay.
I'm going to watch it.
Sully. Sully. That's the name
영화
of the movie.
제목이 정확하게 Full Name이요. Full Name of the movie. So Sully.
Yes.
The Miracle of the Hudson River.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
but the Koreans have done it already, right?
허드슨 강의
yeah.
기적. 설리가 그러니까 파일럿 그 기장의 이름입니다. 설리, 미스터 설리. Okay. Yeah. Tonight I wish to you enjoy the movie in the internet. 예. 네. 시간이 조금 남았는데요. 그 제가 한번 오케이.
I would like to make the point of, well, I think the aviation industry that you refer to and Thomas referred to is the perfect example of an industry where learning is institutionalized, right? So it's critical, like Thomas already said, well, you don't want to be the number 1 crash company. So in the aviation industry, these brilliant failures already have been introduced. So one point that I wanted to make is that we also can learn from other industries, right? So it's important to do some cross-industry learning. And well, I think when Korean Air already did it, and why can't other industries learn from Korean Air? And why can't Korean Air act as a kind of ambassador for brilliant failures to make these valuable learnings from the aviation industry available to other industries?
The essence here is that in aviation, learning is more important than blaming. So if something goes wrong, and it does not necessarily need to be an accident, which takes lives, but if something went wrong, then there is an investigation. And the interesting thing here is that the results of this investigation, this learning investigation, may never be used for prosecution of the people. So that means that people can always speak out freely about what happened because they know that in that the information, the learnings from that discussion will never be used against them. That doesn't mean that there will be no prosecution, but there will never be used information from that other discussion. And that is because indeed in the aviation industry, everyone is convinced learning is more important than punishing and blaming.
Yeah.
오케이. 많은 분들이 얘기를 하셨는데, Mr. Theo, you have many experience for business in the software industry. 지금 한국 소프트웨어 지금 아마 계신 그 청중들이 계실 것 같은데요. 한국 소프트웨어 인더스트리 또는 비즈니스에서 이러한 실패로부터 배우는 교훈 혹시 뭐 해주실 말씀이 있으시면 해주시면 좋겠습니다.
Yes. This morning, our earlier Prime Minister said he was proud to be Dutch and he loved Korea. I'm proud to be a citizen of the world. And I love the Netherlands and I love Korea and I love many other countries. But as citizen of the world, on the moment that you accept that, you're not going to think only for the people in your country. You have to think from the user if you make software. Not what you want. The user wants something. And it must be easy to handle. It doesn't make any sense as he needs 20 shortcuts to get something on the screen. It must go directly. So always think, what does the user want? How can I help the user to make it easy? That's the most important thing. But always think not from your own view. Look from the view of the user and take it from as much as possible different countries of the world where people could handle that. And also if you make a mistake or a failure, also think you are a citizen of the world. In many countries it's allowed to make a mistake or a failure. So why not for you? Software is not something for one country or for one man or woman. What we do on this moment, SaaS solutions, software as a solution on the internet, is for the whole world. So think in that way, and that makes it much easier to create software. And if you need any information, I'm quite happy to help you. Send me an email or call me, or take me away one of these 2 days when we're still here, and we can discuss this kind of things. Thank you.
Actually, I can subscribe to what Theo is saying. And it starts already by calling the customer a user. There's only one other industry that calls his customer users, which is the drugs industry. So I think if you already start thinking in a completely different way about the people who are indeed the customer of your services and get into a dialogue with them, indeed quite often you see this also when new software developments hit the market, like a new operating system. There are always bugs in operating systems. Why is that? Because it's extremely complex. They spend millions of hours in debugging, and it is 1 second, literally 1 second on the market, and the first bugs are already there. So we should accept that life is not perfect, and we should be open about it. So if we pretend that we are selling the perfect product, then you will disappoint people. If you say, well, like Thomas also said, our intention is to give you a good product. We tried hard. This is what we did. And please help us if the product is not perfect. Then you have a complete different dialogue with your customer. And then you will create also the space and also the willingness with the other parties to overcome these shortcomings and overcome the failures. And then they become a brilliant failure.
Also, I think that it is very important to work together by software development with other countries, or with other companies. Why should you create the same what another already did? Try to work together. Try also to work with ideas together to develop products. Because you have to be very fast in this world. Where we're thinking on today, maybe 10 other people also thinking on it. So it is a short run. Who is the winner? So if you don't have competitors. You only have people who want to do the same as you. So do it with them. And make the time of development shorter. And make it better, because you have more time to test your software and to make perfect software. Only build your part. That's what I told already before. It's a circle or a ball, and there are points in, and that is software. It's not any longer one solution in a couple of years. It's all type, small solutions picked together and make a program of that.
Perhaps,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, just
yeah,
30 minutes.
we'll move to 20 seconds, whatever. Not about failures, but about software. So one thing we see emerge in terms of software and sustainability at the moment from Cambridge is a very new area called FinTech for Sustainability. It's really young, but it's going to get a lot of support from all kinds of laws and legislation and regulation, which is currently being developed by the largest economies of the world. So it might, if you're a software developer, it might be interesting to have a look at the overlap between commerce, finance, technology, and sustainability, because if you remember perhaps this schedule, this chart I showed about climate change and all of the other issues, that will be, well, the odds are, I heard Mr. Rogoff, you can't predict, but my bet is that it's going to be a very big market in the future.
예, thank you everybody. 자, 이제 마무리를 해야 될 시간이 됐습니다. 청중 여러분 그 질문하실 것도 있으실 것 같고 더 듣고 싶은 얘기가 많으실 것 같은데요. 시간이 다 됐기 때문에 마치고 개인적으로 이렇게 질문할 수 있는 시간을 가졌으면 감사하겠습니다. 오늘의 주제는 위대한 실패, 초복잡성 시대 극복의 힘이란 주제로 2시간 동안 저희들이 자담회를 가졌습니다. 아무쪼록 오늘 이 시간이 한국에서 실패를 체계적으로 교훈을 만들고 또 다른 새로운 성공으로 가는 그런 길이 될 수 있는 좋은 기회가 됐으면 하는 바람입니다. 오늘 프로페서 폴 이스케께서 발표하신 내용 중에서 fail, first attempts in learning, 굉장히 좋은 단어입니다. 학습의 첫 번째 시도는 실패에서 시작된다. 아주 좋은 단어를 오늘 배우고 갑니다. 아무쪼록 그 네덜란드 먼 데서 오셨는데요. 모든 분들이 브릴리언트 페일류어를 위대한 석세스 좀 이렇게 한국을 위해서도 더 많은 좀 도움을 주셨으면 하는 바람입니다. 언제나 여러분들 건강하시고요, 행복하시고 항상 신이 가호가 있기를 바라겠습니다. 오늘 끝까지 함께해 주신 청중 여러분들 오랫동안 감사합니다. 이것으로 마치도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.